Welcome to the Rockbridge Report Newsmaker. I'm Ryan Raicht. Today, my guest is Tom Stanley, an agricultural, natural resources, and farm business management extension agent from Virginia Tech University. Mr. Stanley is part of a team of extension agents that serves Augusta, Bath, Highland, Rockbridge, and Rockingham counties. Mr. Stanley, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here, Ryan.
So let's just get started. So in February, Virginia saw some extremely warm temperatures for the time of year. Now in March, things are starting to cool down. So what kind of effect does that have on local farmland and crops?
Well, the effects aren't that great, probably most significantly on our orchards. I was visiting a peach orchard. They have a range of varieties, both peach and apple trees. They're on the eastern slope of the Blue Ridge, so they're just across the mountain in Nelson County. And there was one variety of plum that was blooming February the 1st. And I was there here just last week. We're in mid-March, and there was two varieties of peaches that were in full bloom. And there will be no crop from those trees this year. But the orchard operator, he has something on the order of, probably a couple thousand trees, and they plan for that. They have a number of varieties that are situated and based on their slope and their aspect, where they're planted, combined with their typical maturity dates and when they emerge, that he knows those are early varieties that a lot of times he'll know there'll be years that he's going to lose them, but in the years that we avoid those frosts and they don't get the frost damage, then he's kind of in a position to be first to the market with a really high quality crop. So I think that the effects are not that great. Probably your, like I say, high value crops like orchards are the ones that are the most vulnerable. But this weather pattern, while yes, unusually warm, but this type of variability is not uncommon. So, but certainly the peak temperatures are unusual, but we've had mild winters, and it's really the rainfall that we're concerned about.
So we were mentioning temperatures. So the avian flu pandemic is supposed to die out with higher temperatures during the summer, but this year it stayed around. What's the update on that? As we enter more warmer temperatures, can we expect the avian flu pandemic to die down again, or can we expect more of the same?
You're correct that the avian influenza has a seasonal pattern. It has traditionally, when we've had outbreaks, it's typically the vector is migratory birds, and it has traditionally had a seasonal pattern. We've had outbreaks in commercial poultry in Virginia's poultry industry in the past. Of course, in Rockbridge County, the poultry industry is extremely important. Something close to half of our full-time commercial farms are contract poultry producers. And so what's unusual about this particular strain of H5N1, its persistence through all the seasons. And that is H5N1 variants is something that the CDC and Homeland Security have always closely monitored. And this current strain is drawing particular attention. One, its ability to overcome these seasonal variations, persisted through the seasons. And then the other factor is that there has been a case of transmission of the virus between mammals. It occurred on a mink farm in Spain, and it is the same strain of migratory birds that travel in Europe, very similar. The virus is present in Europe and other parts of the world as well. And we have a documented case of the virus being transmitted from one mammal to another. So that indicates that this current strain has some potential to mutate, and so it's being very closely watched. To this point, we have not seen a significant level of infection in humans. Very rare cases, and all those cases that have occurred have been from bird to humans. People that farmers that have been in close contact with birds that have picked up an H5N1 strain of influenza. So at this point, we've had good biosecurity control. We've only had 2 commercial farms in Virginia that have had to be depopulated because of infection, but the monitoring is ongoing. It's something we have to be watchful for.
If a human does get infected, could that be deadly to humans, or is it mostly deadly towards animals?
The virus is potentially deadly, yes. I don't think that in this particular strain, the handful and literal handful of cases we've had did not result in death. But the potential of release of that virus into the human population, if it were to mutate into a form that would readily jump and be transmitted from human to human, there would be a percentage of mortality that would take place. And as we've experienced through the pandemic that we seem to be emerging from, that's the reason for the scrutiny and the heightened awareness and monitoring.
So on a lighter note, are there any farmers in Rockbridge County that you see that are experiencing or experimenting with different crops that aren't necessarily native to the Mid-Atlantic region?
We are still experimenting with hemp, and hemp grew a great deal of attention about 4 years ago. A lot of enthusiasm for the crop, both what we might term THC hemp, for whether it's medicinal purposes or as a recreational drug, and certainly the decriminalization of it, legalization has drawn a lot of attention. And what we saw is really a classic whiplash effect of supply and demand. And the issues in terms of regulatory requirements necessary to market, whether it's for CBD oil or for THC, recreational drug use, that the regulatory hurdles combined with this whiplash of oversupply and insufficient infrastructure to process and to manage the crop has really caused those that experimented with that market to have, frankly, a very bad experience. Now the other hemp product, there's another variety of hemp that's very well suited for fiber production, and there's a lot of interest in growing hemp for fiber. It has potential to be used in flooring and clothing. It's an extremely versatile fiber. The issue with that in our part of Virginia, in particularly Rockbridge County and the I-81 corridor, is we're talking about a land-extensive crop that is machine harvested. And as a general rule, very few farms are positioned to take advantage of machine harvested crops that require a lot of land. As I very often like to say, Rockbridge County is a lot more like Ireland than we are Iowa. And in terms of the fiber hemp business, there is somebody somewhere, probably in another state with more flat land, that has a bigger machine and more flat land, and they will be more competitive in the production of fiber hemp than we in this part of Virginia, in Western Virginia, ever will be.
Well, that's all the time we have. Mr. Stanley, thank you so much for joining me. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Raicht. Thank you so much for watching.